Hi, it's Mike with AskTractorMike.com. I'm standing today in a dry creek bed on my property, and I'm right next to a state highway, so you may hear some traffic noise today. And the reason I'm here is I'm going to answer a viewer letter from Ron, who's got the same problem I have. He has a little problem with a lot of water coming through his area and eroding his pasture. And he has a question about his tractor and how to fix the problem with his tractor and what he can do with his tractor. And I'm going to talk about that, but I'm also going to talk a little bit today about stream management. A lot of us move out to the country, build our house up on that hill overlooking that valley, and then we've got a creek running through it. And sometimes we get a lot of water and it washes out the soil and erodes the area and it makes a mess and so on. So we're going to talk about all that today. And I really want to use this video as kind of a forum, because I don't have that much of experience with what I'm going to talk about today, so I'd like to know what your experiences have been, because I know some of my viewers have had the same kind of a situation where you've had a creek with a lot of water going through it and you've tried to fix the erosion and also get some of the gravel out of there to use for landscaping and roads and stuff like that. I want to know what your experience has been, and I'm sure Ron, my viewer, does too. So let's get to the letter today. This comes from Ron, and he says, "Hi, Mike. How deep of water can I run my John Deere 3032E through?" He says, "I have a creek in back of my house, and it is eroding into my pasture. There is a lot of large gravel in several areas that I would like to dredge and make a deeper channel to keep the water in, but I'm not sure how deep of water I can run my tractor through." He says some web blogs say only the bottom of the rim where it meets the rubber. Others say as high as the transmission and the axle vents. A few say just not to submerge the battery, the fan, and the starter. My owner's manual does not indicate how deep water I can run through or where these vents are located. And it's signed Ron and his 3032 Submarine, LOL. Well, Ron, I want to tell you, I'm really nervous about running my tractor through water, especially on a prolonged basis. And, literally you probably could get up to, the bottom of the tires and not do any damage. But the deeper you go and the more you're in the actual area where the water's running, the more sediment you're going to dredge up. And that sediment will have sand in it. And that's going to get those fine particles, going to get in areas I don't think you want them. And anytime you get water in contact with metal, you're asking for rust. So first off, if I were going to take my tractor into water occasionally, like I had a low water bridge I wanted to go through, I would start using a marine quality grease. There are certain marine greases that are designed for use in water. I use it on my boat, and has probably a lot of anti-rust agents inside it, additives that try to keep rust from forming. And then anytime I went through the water in my tractor, I'd find those low grease zerks and shoot them with grease and try to push the water and the possible rust out and fill the cavities with grease. So from a tractor standpoint, that's what I would recommend you do. Now, it gets really difficult to fix an erosion problem in a stream. What I have here is probably a result of construction going on upstream. I live in Christian County, Missouri, and the population of the little town that we're on their rural route has just about doubled in the last 10 or 15 years. A lot of people moving here. And a lot of people are building homes and businesses upstream of this little dry creek. And so this creek was probably pretty stable for decades, and then when all this construction happened, and you add roofs and you add parking lots and you add driveways, and that water flows down quickly, well, when that water does come down this creek, I mean it comes fast. Probably comes in a wall. And it started to take out some of the trees. It had definitely taken out the soil around here. And you can see in the back of me, a big clump of trees that's down to the roots, just kind of clinging onto the side. And it's taken the silt and the soil down. And that's what Ron wants to fix. Ron, the problem is, fixing a problem like that is more complicated than we'd all like to think. Right behind me here, this drops down to about 3 feet. There's obviously, when the water does come down, there's a big current comes down, and then it drops down to about 8 feet below where I'm standing right now. So the water comes down, and I'm not an expert on hydrology, but I could see what the results are. It comes down, and when it goes, it gets going really fast right behind me here and takes out a big swale here of soil. And to fix that, you'd about have to drive some gigantic timbers in and put rock behind it, because this behind me here is just dirt and silt, and it's going to wash out easy. And until that washes out back far enough, and it's going to take a long time to do that, hopefully, until it hits solid bedrock, that's going to continue to erode. And that's Mother Nature working, and it's hard to keep Mother Nature from doing what Mother Nature does. And that water coming down here is doing what's causing this. Now, it bothers me. My wife would like to come along and figure a way of keeping these trees here, because if we ever build a house, and this is property we bought to build our dream house on, we'll build it up on a hill in back of me here, and we want all these trees here to kind of keep this highway noise away from us, because the state highway back here is fairly well traveled, and the more trees and vegetation we've got between it and us, the less noise there will be. So we really want to keep these trees here, but in order to do it, and what we would need to do on this little stretch of, and this is just 20 acres here, this is across a 20-acre section, you'd probably be looking $40,000 to $50,000 to keep the erosion from happening. So could I get in here with a tractor and do it? My thought is, and I have, like I said, very limited experience, I could get in here and mess around with a tractor and make some areas cleaner to drive through and cut down some gravel bars, and it probably wouldn't do a bit of good. The water coming down is going to wash this dirt out on this one side until it gets solid there. Now, one thing, Ron, I want to tell you, you got to kind of watch. When you get a vehicle, tractor or skid loader next to a waterway, you start getting into a little bit of danger. And I don't want to get political with anybody here. It's just the fact of life. The Department of Natural Resources, the Conservation Department, and especially the Army Corps of Engineers take disturbing a stream area or a waterway pretty seriously. And if you get in there and do a lot, you could be subject to fines, and those guys don't mess around. Now, I called the local Department of Natural Resources in my area to find out what I could and couldn't do, and I'll go over that. And this is Missouri. This is where I live. It's probably different where you are, and it could be the county regulates it where you are. But before I took a tractor into a creek bed and did anything, I would call and find out what the laws and regulations are, because it's better to find out before than find out afterwards. But in Missouri, a couple of things. The person I got at the district office for the DNR is actually a former student of mine. When I first started my YouTube channel, I was teaching a college class in ag sales, and I had this young man. And so he was real easy to talk to, and all the folks I've talked to in DNR have been real easy to get along with. But in this state, here's some things you want to know about. Number one, you don't want to drive up and down a waterway, because that dredges up silt. It disturbs aquatic life, and it can really be bad for your tractor, because, like I said, you're dredging up silt and stuff, and that can get in your tractor. You want to be really careful. If the water was up to my ankles right here, I wouldn't know there's an 8-foot drop off right there. And if I were driving my tractor down here, I could turn over pretty quickly right there if I were using my tractor. And most of the time, your creek beds are really soft gravel. It's not solid. Now, there's some creeks where you're on bedrock, and they'd be fine to drive across, but those rocks are slick when they're wet. But right here, this is really material that is loose. And so if there was a little water here and I couldn't see where the holes were, I could drive off in a sinkhole pretty easy. So you got to be careful about that. The DNR in Missouri is fine with you just grabbing up a scoop of rock and taking it put it on your driveway or put it in your landscaping, as long as it doesn't change the channel greatly. They don't get too excited about what you're doing until you start selling it. And if you're selling rock out of your creek, you definitely need a permit. I would check with, like I said, the Army Corps of Engineers. Those guys kind of scare me, to be honest with you, because I know people that live on the lake, and they border core property. And if they cut down a tree on core property, man, you can get fined pretty good. And that's a battle you won't win in court. So like I said, don't want to get all political. But if I were getting ready, Ron, to go in your creek, I would definitely know where the holes are and how to keep safe. And I would check with the Army Corps of Engineers to see if they're okay with you getting in there and doing a little work. And I'd check with the DNR to see where they're at and follow the rules, because the fines can get pretty bad when you're dealing with a waterway, because you can do a lot of damage on your property, but it can also damage downstream, the aquatic life and other things. So in Missouri, they're okay with you driving across water. If you have a low water bridge and you need to take your tractor across it, they don't have a problem with that. They don't have a problem with you scooping up some rock, but they don't like you driving through the stream, and I just don't think that's a good idea for your tractor, Ron. So to answer your question, try not to get that tractor in the water any more than you have to, and check the regulations in your area, and do a little study on your erosion problem. Can you really fix that with your tractor, or is that going to take a lot more commitment and money to do? And if anything you do just gets washed on down the creek later on, just wasted time and diesel doing it. But I would like all of you that watch my channel, if you've tried to control an erosion problem like this on your property, how did that go? And have you taken your tractor in water, and how did that go? Did you see damage later on? When I was a kid, I grew up hauling hay for a neighbor, and they had to get from the hay field to the barn. They had to go through 2 or 3 low water bridges with water running through them. And I got under that pickup truck one time and looked at it, and it was like shiny metal underneath from driving through the water all the time. But there was rust forming all up in the wheel wells and everywhere where that water was going. So I just don't think, Ron, you want to get that tractor in water any more than you have to. But if you do, go to a marine grease and keep it out of there as much as you can. But put your opinion in the comments, because I want to hear what everybody else's experience has been. Appreciate you watching my videos. If you'd like to subscribe to my YouTube channel, I'd be honored. Just click the mic face icon and check the bell so you're notified when I post future videos. Here's a link to my website and the Tractor Fun Store with unique items for sale for the tractor owner that helps support my YouTube channel. And here's another video you might want to watch. Thanks for watching.